Welcome to Lost Relation Chronicles. Lucifer was an angel, a good angel. Then he became the devil. Good guys can become bad guys due to their own greed, their own desires, and sometimes the people they love force them to become the bad guys. I was one, always such guy, and maybe by the end of this story, you might hate me. I married Amelia 22 years ago. I loved her with all my heart. The son that she gave me. Yes, the son that she gave me. Not my son, but from someone else. It was my friend, Levi. He fathered her son. And for 133 years I was a fool, raising him as my own. My father-in-law, Hudson Williams, was a rich man. He had built his empire from the ground up. A self-made mogul, with an iron grip on everything he touched. His influence stretched far beyond, his company weaving through the highest circles of power. When I first met him, I saw a man I could admire, a man whose respect I wanted to earn. Levi and I started working for him straight out of college. We were young, hungry, and determined to prove ourselves side by side. We worked hard, put in long hours, and climbed the ranks. Levi was always the charming one, the one who could walk into a room and make everyone like him. I was the strategist, the planner, the one who made sure things ran smoothly. We balanced each other out, or so I thought. Then came Amelia. She was beautiful, the kind of woman who turned heads effortlessly, but beyond her looks, she carried an air of elegance and confidence that made her seem untouchable. She was Hudson's only daughter, the jewel of his empire, and when she looked at me, I felt like the luckiest man alive. I courted her with everything I had, and when she said yes to marrying me, I thought I had won the greatest prize. Of all, I believed we were in love, that we were building a life together on a foundation of trust and devotion. Little did I know that the marriage was just a farce. When Hudson died, I knew things would change. As well was clear, every last bit of his empire would go to Amelia's son Dylan, once he turned 21. Until then, I was entrusted with everything. The company, the estate, the wealth. I was to ensure that the business ran smoothly, that Dylan would one day inherit an empire worth billions. Hudson had been thorough. No one could challenge my authority, no board member, no shareholder, no outsider. The only person who could remove me was Dylan himself. And even then, not until he was of age, I had absolute power. A good man would have used it wisely, and I did. Because I was a good man, I told myself that every day as I worked tirelessly to honor H.E.'s wishes, I dedicated myself to the company, ensuring that when the time came, Dylan would inherit a kingdom built on stability, power, and wealth. I never questioned my role, never doubted my place. Until that night. It was late when I arrived home, earlier than usual. The house was quiet, dimly lit by the golden glow of the chandeliers. I was about to call out for Amelia, when I heard voices from the study, her voice and Leva's. I stopped. Their words were hushed, urgent. Something in their tone made my stomach twist. I stepped closer, careful not to make a sound. The door was slightly ajar. "The old man has put us in a bad spot," Levy was saying, frustration thick in his voice. I wanted him gone years ago, but now he is untouchable. No one can overrule him. "Amelia, he has total control. If we wait, we'll lose everything." I felt the air leave my lungs. My best friend, my wife. What the hell were they talking about? "We don't have to lose anything," Amelia replied smoothly, her voice carrying that familiar, practiced calm. "Let him raise the boy. Luke is a great father." The room spun. My fingers tightened against the doorframe. "A great father," Levi scoffed. "A great father to my son. My son. No, it couldn't be." "I told you," Amelia said, her tone turning cold. "I'll divorce him the day he hands over the business to Dylan. He'll be of no use to me. Then I'll throw him out of the company, out of this house, out of my life." The betrayal stung. Like a blade, I forced myself to stay still, my breath shallow, my heart pounding so loud I was sure they would hear it. Levi let out a humorless laugh. "And Dylan, will he really be your son by then? Or will Luke mold him into his son?" There was a pause. a heartbeat of silence. Then Amelia's voice came soft but resolute. "It doesn't matter. Dylan knows that you are his father. I made sure that he never speaks about it. Let Luke train him to be a successful businessman like him." She exhaled almost as if in satisfaction. "He is my son Dylan. My son at least." That's what I had believed for 13 years, but to him I had never been his father. He had known the truth all along. He had known and kept it hidden. That hurt more than I could put into words. My wife and my best friend had a son, and they wanted me to raise him, not just raise him, but shape him, mold him into the man. They needed him to be a good son. I couldn't breathe. My chest felt tight. My skin too small for the rage and betrayal that clawed at my insides. The house felt suffocating, the walls pressing in the laughter of my past self. Echoing through the halls, like a cruel joke, I needed to get out. I grabbed my keys and left. The city lights blurred as I drove. The roads twisted and turned, but I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't heading anywhere. I was just moving. My mind was a storm. Memories, voices, laughter that had once been real, but now felt tainted. I stopped near the riverfront. The water was calm, untouched by the chaos. Inside me, the moon cast its silver reflection across the surface, still and quiet, as if the world wasn't crumbling beneath my feet. I stepped out of the car, the cool night air biting against my skin. I walked toward the railing, staring at the dark expanse of water below. The city hummed behind me, distant, unimportant. I exhaled, the breath shaky. My mind replayed everything. Amelia's voice. Levi's laugh. Let him raise the boy. Luke is a great father. I will throw him out of the company, out of this house, out of my life. Dylan knows that you are not his father. I made sure that he never speaks about it. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. 14 years. 14 years of devotion, of sacrifice, of believing I was part of something real. And all along I had been a fool. I clenched my fists. My nails dug into my palms. The sting grounding me, feeding something inside me that I hadn't felt before. The pain was fading, replaced by something else, something dark, something alive. I wasn't breaking. No, I was changing. Something inside me was growing, unfurling like a shadow that had been waiting for the right moment to rise. The demon inside me stirred, whispering in a voice I could no longer ignore, and all it said was, "Revenge." They wanted me to raise a good son. They wanted me to shape him, to mold him fine. I would do exactly that, but not in the way they expected. I would give Dylan a father who would shape him into the man he truly deserved to be, a father who would teach him lessons, his real father. Never could a father who would mold him piece by piece until he was exactly what they deserved. That night, I slept better than I had in years. The pain, the betrayal, the heartbreak. It was all still there, but now it had a purpose, a direction. Tomorrow would be the first day of my revenge. I will turn their son into my weapon for vengeance. Morning came, and I didn't wake Dylan up. I usually did, making sure he had time to get ready, time to eat a proper breakfast, time to prepare for his day, but not today. Let him sleep. Let him wake up and panic, scrambling to get ready, realizing that time waits for no one. Let him learn the value of being late. 15 minutes before his bus arrived, I walked to his room and knocked. "Dylan, wake up. Your bus is almost here." A groggy voice answered. What time is it? Time for you to learn." I walked away, letting him rush out of bed, stumbling, scrambling to get dressed. His footsteps thundered down the stairs as he shoved on his shoes, barely managing to grab his backpack. "Dad, my lunch." I tossed his lunchbox at him as he struggled to put on his jacket. "Hurry up, your bus is outside." But the loud honk of the bus interrupted him. His eyes widened. He grabbed his bag and bolted out the door. Barely making it before the door shut behind him, I stood at the doorway. watching as the bus pulled away. Then I asked my driver to drive him to school. Relax. Son, you are rich. You will go to school in a Maybach. My son was happy to let go of the bus now. He wakes up late and my driver drops him to school. Lesson 1, don't be there on time. Be late, you have money. 2 days later, Dylan approached me, his eyes bright with excitement. Dad, I want to join the wrestling team. I took a slow sip of my coffee, letting his words settle in the air between us. Then I set the cup down and looked at him wrestling. He nodded eagerly. Yeah, it looks really fun. I think I'd be good at it. I let out a small chuckle. Dylan, you're a filthy rich kid. Wrestling is for poor people who have to struggle. They fight because they have no choice, because it's their only way out. His smile faltered slightly, but I cut him off. My voice, calm, firm. Wrestlers perform for you when you throw money at them. They fight harder. That's their reality. You're the audience, Dylan. You're the one they fight for. You're not the fighter who risks his well-being for a few claps and a plastic trophy. His expression shifted, the excitement fading. He thought about it for a moment, then nodded. You're right, Dad. And then he smiled. Lesson 2. Let go of your interests. You are rich. Let others do what you wanted to do and just throw your money to watch them. When Dylan turned 15, his world started expanding beyond the walls of our home. Beyond the careful structure I had built for him. His friends, mostly middle-class kids trying to carve out their own identities, had joined a gym, and like any teenager desperate to fit in, he wanted to follow. One evening he approached me, his eyes filled with excitement and determination. Dad, I want to join the gym. I want to get more muscles. I leaned back in my chair, folding my arms across my chest, studying him, the enthusiasm in his voice, the way he stood a little taller, like he was already imagining his future self, stronger, bigger, more powerful. I chuckled. Come on, son, let me guess all your poor friends have joined, right? He hesitated for a second before nodding. Yeah, but I held up a hand to stop him, shaking my head. You see, son, they don't have money to show off. That's why they have to work hard, sweating, lifting weights, struggling just to build a body that people might admire. It's the only way they can stand out. Dylan frowned slightly, considering my words. I leaned forward, my voice dropping to something softer, more persuasive. But you have money. And money speaks louder than muscles. He listened, absorbing every word. I smirked. Look, I'll get you a Ferrari on your 16th birthday. His eyes widened. A Ferrari. I nodded. A red one. Sleek. Powerful. You pull up in that, and girls will drool over you. Those guys breaking their backs in the gym. They'll be lucky if they get a glance. That body they're working so hard for. It's just muscle temporary, but a Ferrari, that's all metal that lasts longer than muscle. His lips curled into a grin, excitement overtaking whatever doubts he had before. Yeah, you're right, Dad. I placed a hand on his shoulder, squeezing it lightly. You don't need muscle, Dylan. You have money, you can buy a muscle car. All this time, I made sure Amelia never suspected a thing. I played my role to perfection. The loving husband, the doting father, the loyal son-in-law, keeping Hudson's empire running smoothly. I smiled when I needed to kiss her goodnight and listened to her pointless little conversations about charity events and garden parties. But behind the scenes, I was slowly gutting the company from the inside. The first step was Levi. I transferred him to head the production department, the one place that had no oversight on the company's financials, no insight into where the money was flowing. He thought it was a promotion, a sign that I trusted him. The fool, he had no idea I was cutting him off from the core of the business. Next, I got to work, draining the company, piece by piece. It started with marketing. Money was funneled into campaigns that were never meant to deliver results, ads that ran on obscure networks, promotional deals that mysteriously fell through sponsorships that never actually existed. But none of it raised any red flags. Why? Because the company accountant was my guy. He wasn't loyal to the company, he was loyal to money. I made sure of that. You keep your mouth shut and you get 10% of all the spins I push through, simple as that. He hesitated at first, but greed is a wonderful motivator. A few deposits into an offshore account, and he was eating out of my palm. Every quarter. Millions flowed into shell accounts. I had created under false names tucked away in places no auditor would think to look. Amelia oblivious, Levi too busy playing factory manager to realize that the very company he wanted to control was bleeding out the board clueless I presented. Fake numbers made sure that every board meeting started with fake numbers and ended with wine at a nearby hotel, and by evening, every board member had a woman to please him. In bed, everyone left happy, no questions asked. I made it their habit. 3 meetings later, no one was interested in the numbers. Everyone wanted their pleasure. I had successfully corrupted everyone top to bottom, and Dylan was living the dream. I handed him an Amex black card. His own personal plaything, the best part. The bills were all charged to the company. He thought I was spoiling him using my personal wealth to fund his every whim. Designer clothes, expensive watches, 5-star hotels, nights out that cost more than most people's yearly salaries. "Dad, are you sure this is okay?" he asked one evening, flipping the sleek black card between his fingers. I laughed, patting his back. "Of course, son. You're my boy, nothing is too much for you." He beamed, completely unaware he was spending his money, thinking that his stupid father was paying from his pocket. Amelia and I, well, our marriage became nothing more than a formality after I learned the truth. I never touched her again, never kissed her, never whispered sweet nothings in her ear. And the best part, she never complained. I suppose she was relieved. Maybe she thought I had lost interest, or maybe she was just happy to keep things that way. Her perfect little arrangement intact. Let me raise her son. Let me run her father's empire. Let me play the until. She was ready to toss me aside, but I was no fool, and no, I wasn't climbing the walls in frustration, nor was I stuck playing with Sui E and her 4 sisters. I had my fill elsewhere. Young women, eager, desperate, and willing. They wanted money. I had plenty of it. Well, technically, Hudson's company had plenty of it, and since I was already bleeding the business dry, what was a little extra for my own amusement, expensive hotels, weekend getaways, a fresh face every time I wanted one, Hudson was paying for my fun from his brave. But every night after all the masks and the charades, I found myself at the same place, the riverfront. I would stand there staring at the water, watching the way the moonlight shimmered on the surface. It looked peaceful, calm, undisturbed, but I knew better. Underneath the current raged, swirling, violent, slowly eroding everything in its path, just like me. 5 years P. Dylan was now 18, fat, slow, unintelligent. He had no ambition, no discipline, no clue what to do with his life exactly as I had planned. It was on his 18th birthday that Amelia finally voiced her concerns. She sat across from me at the grand dining table, swirling the wine in her glass. Her face was tight, her forehead creased with something close to worry. "Luke, I'm worried about Dylan," she said, her voice quieter than usual. "You're nothing like you, in turning into a failure." I smiled, taking a slow sip of my own drink. "Relax," I said smoothly. "Hugh's just 18, he has plenty of time to grow up." She sighed, shaking her head, clearly unconvinced. But I wasn't worried. I knew the truth. Dylan would never grow up. What Amelia never realized was that Dylan had plenty of dreams once, plenty of things he wanted to do. He wanted to paint a noble pursuit. Right. But I was there to guide him, to steer him in the right direction, son. I had told him, why waste time smearing colors on a canvas? You can buy art instead. So he did spend millions on paintings. He didn't even understand. Then he wanted to play the guitar. He spent hours practicing, his fingers bleeding from the metal strings. "Don't hurt yourself, son," I said, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Music is for those who struggle. You don't need to struggle. Get an expensive sound system instead." The next day his room was filled with top-of-the-line speakers. He never touched the guitar again. Whatever he started, I made sure he never finished. I turned him into a man with the attention span of a goldfish, distracted, unmotivated, a boy who wanted everything but earned nothing. And why did Amelia never complain for that she would have needed to be home she wasn't? I made sure her days were spent at the country club playing cards with her rich Boer friends, and her nights, well, I knew where she spent those screwing Levi. She had left her son in the hands of a monster. She had left him in the hands of the devil himself. For 8 years, I watched, not in anger, not in pain, but in cold, calculated patience, a highly paid private investigator, one of the best money could buy, kept a close eye on Amelia and Levi. What did I get in return? Everything: videos, photos, text messages, call recordings, more than enough evidence to launch an entire adult website featuring the great love story of Amelia and Levi. There were tapes of Dylan, 2 conversations that told me exactly what kind of man he was becoming. One particular night I sat in my study, whiskey in hand, as I watched a video from the dining room camera. Dylan slouched in his chair, fork lazily pushing food around his plate. Amelia sat across from him, half listening, half scrolling through her phone. Mom, Dylan said, pausing for dramatic effect, "Dad makes life so easy." Amelia looked up, mildly curious. "Oh, he just," Dylan shrugged, stuffing a bite of steak into his mouth. "He just knows how to get things, and he taught me how too, like I don't need to waste time on useless things." Amelia smirked, sipping her wine. "That's good, sweetheart, you're growing up." "Yeah." Dylan continued, his tone confident, self-satisfied. "I know how to achieve what I want in life, how to plan and how to make sure that all plans are successful." Achievement in Dylan's mind was simply the ability to purchase something. Let me give an example of his planning. Dylan wanted to buy a sneaker. Step 1. Go to Dad, tell him you want a sneaker. Step 2. Dad will tell you to buy the most expensive sneaker in the market. Step 3. Go to the store and make sure to take the limousine. Step 4. Look cool and enter the store. Step 5. Take out the black AMX card and tell the store manager to pack every sneaker in the store and send it to your address. Step 6. Go home and find your size and wear it. Step 7. Give away rest to your poor friends. By the end of the day, you have spent just over a few $100,000. But you achieved your goal of buying that sneaker and pleasing your friends. Great lesson in target achievement and achieving social service. And his mother. She never questioned it. She never asked, "What do you want to achieve?" She never wondered, "Who is my son becoming?" She was just happy. Happy that he was growing up. Happy that he was comfortable. Happy in her own ignorance, and that's why I trusted her. Not in love, not in loyalty, but in her own arrogance. I trusted that she truly believed I was a stupid, clueless husband, that I had no idea of her betrayal. It was all coming together. Dylan's 21st birthday was just days away, the moment I had been waiting for. I sat in my office, leaning back in my leather chair, fingers steepled under my chin, as my accountant stood before me. "We need to wipe everything clean," I said, my voice steady. He nodded without hesitation, understood, and just like that it was done, with $1 million wired into the IT manager's offshore account. Every transaction, every financial record, every ledger was gone, not missing, not misplaced, erased, as if the company's billion-dual empire had never even existed. No one knew, no one questioned it, because they were all mine. The finance team, all on my payroll, millionaires, not overnight, but slowly over the last 8 years. Each of them had their own exit strategy, their own new lives, waiting in countries where the U.S. laws meant nothing. And slowly, over the course of weeks, they began to disappear. One resignation after another. No one batted an eye. The HR department. Mine, they approved every resignation, processed every last paycheck, all without a single raised eyebrow. The IT team, mine. They ensured no records of these transactions remained. The marketing team, mine. They had siphoned millions under fake campaigns, fake agencies, all funneled into accounts that only I controlled. Silence. Pure B, silence. No one asked questions. Why would they? They had everything they ever wanted. I had corrupted the entire system, slowly, methodically, over the last 8 years. And those who wouldn't bend, those who dared to resist, they were replaced by men who would do what they were told. Now, the only team left standing, the only department still in limbo, was the production team, headed by Levi 2, days before D-Day. I was sitting in my study, staring out the window at the empty driveway when my phone rang. I knew who it was before. I even picked up Luke, my lawyer. His voice came through low and serious. "Talk to me," I said. Swirling the whiskey in my glass, he sighed. "Amelia reached out," I smirked. "Finally, she wants a divorce." He continued, "And listen, screw. Client confidentiality, screw. Professionalism. I value our friendship over everything, man. You need to hear this from me first." I took a slow sip of my drink, letting the burn settle before responding. "She wants out, huh?" "Yeah. But here's the thing." He hesitated. I waited. "She doesn't want anything from you." That made me chuckle. "Nothing. Not the house, not the cars, not a dime. She just wants to be free," he added. I leaned back in my chair, smiling to myself. "Well, isn't that interesting?" There was a pause. "Luke, are you okay, of course?" I said. He exhaled in relief. But then his tone shifted. "There's one more thing. Go on. She wants to hand you the papers at Dylan's birthday party." "Oh, so that's how she wants to play at a public scene, a final act in her little charade that won't be." "A problem," I said, setting my glass down. "You're sure?" I smiled, my reflection staring back at me from the window. "It's all right. Day, the mansion was alive with music and laughter. A grand spectacle of extravagance. Crystal chandeliers bathed the guests in a golden glow, and the air smelled of imported cigars, aged wine, and money. Lots of it. The tables overflowed with delicacies, flown in from across the globe. Nothing was too much for Dylan's 21st birthday, and every cent of it charged to his AMX. The boy had no clue. I stood at the edge of the party, whiskey in hand, watching him bask in the attention of his so-called friends. Friends I had paid for. He was laughing, showing off, thinking he had the world in the palm of his hand. He had no idea that tonight I was handing him an empire built on sand. Then they arrived, Amelia and Levi. She was holding his arm like he was the man of the hour. Her smile was poised, but her eyes betrayed something else. Nervousness. Guilt, I couldn't tell, and I didn't care, I smirked, taking a sip of my drink. Let them have their moment. Dylan stood at the center of it all, his cake, a monstrous creation of chocolate, gold leaf, and arrogance. The crowd chanted, "Speech, speech!" He grinned and took the mic. "I just want to say, thank you, Dad. You made my life so damn easy. And tonight, this is the best night of my life." "Oh, I know it is, son, because after tonight your life will never be the same." The cheers roared as he cut the cake, flashes from cameras, illuminating his clueless face. Then the lawyer approached, right on schedule. He stepped beside me, handing me a sleek black folder. "It's time, Luke." I nodded and took the pen. "You're sure everything is in place? Every last detail?" I turned to Dylan, who was still laughing with his entourage. I held out the sign papers to him. "Congratulations, son. You made it." Dylan's face lit up. "Wait for real." I clapped his shoulder. "Go. Take this company to the sky." The guests clapped, oblivious. Amelia watched, brows slightly furrowed. Levi sipped his champagne, completely unaware that he was about to inherit a kingdom of debt. Then, the final touch, a woman approached, a stunning brunette in a sleek black dress, her heels clicking against the marble floor. She held out an envelope with a knowing smile. "Mr. Carter," she said, her voice smooth as silk, from Amelia. I took it, opened the envelope, and read the document inside. A divorce expected. I smiled cal as ever and looked up at Amelia. She was stealing glances at me, searching. For a reaction, I gave her one. I smiled wider. Then, without hesitation, I signed the papers. Levi looked like he had just seen a ghost. His jaw was tight, his eyes darting between Amelia and me, as if he were waiting for the explosion. The outrage, the fury, the heartbreak. But all I gave him was a smile, a slow, knowing smile that seemed to rattle him. More than anything else, I could almost hear his thoughts. Why isn't he reacting? Why isn't he furious? Because Levi IW, a long time ago, without a word. I turned on my heel and walked away from the party. The music, the laughter, the clinking of glasses. It all faded behind me. I stepped outside into the cool night air, inhaling deeply. It smelled of wet pavement, cigar smoke, and the faintest trace of jasmine. Then I felt it a presence. I turned, and there she was. Amelia. She stood a few feet away, framed by the glow of the mansion lights for a moment. I just looked at her. She was beautiful, still so damn beautiful. The woman I once loved, the woman who had once been my whole world. She didn't speak, but her eyes searched mine, as if looking for something. Regret, anger, pain. It seems like a tear left her eye. She just stood there looking at me, but I gave her nothing. Just a smile. Then I turned, backlifted a hand in a casual wave, and got into my car. I didn't look back as I drove away straight to the airport. A private jet was waiting, its sleek black body glinting under the runway lights. The pilot gave me a nod, and I boarded without hesitation. The wheels left the ground at exact L1 m. By 4:00 p.m. The plane had disappeared off the radar, never to be seen again. When I landed in Lima, Peru, no one was waiting for Luke Carter. Luke Carter no longer existed. A 7-hour drive through winding roads past mountains and rivers brought me to Petid District, where my new identity and my new life was waiting for me back home. The news broke like an earthquake. A private jet en route to some undisclosed location had vanished over the sea. No wreckage found. No survivors. Ed just gone. Luke Carter was dead, at least. That's what they all thought. I could almost picture it. Amelia sitting in the grand living room watching the news with a blank stare. Levi pacing, rubbing his temples, trying to make sense of it all. Dylan probably didn't care much. Maybe he'd raise a glass of overpriced whiskey, thinking about what a good run he had while it lasted. And then the real storm hit. By now, the company was an empty husk. The once bustling offices were nothing more than hollow spaces. With flickering lights and abandoned desks, the marketing team gone. Half of them were in Thailand sipping cocktails on a beach, while the others had settled in Malaysia living like kings. The IT team scattered across the Philippines and India, setting up their new lives funded by the millions I had funneled into their pockets. All of them were rich beyond their wildest dreams. And no one was left to answer for anything. No one except one man, the janitor. Everyone always overlooked the janitor, but I never did. He was the one with keys to every room, the one who walked the halls unnoticed, hearing conversations. No one thought twice about he was the one I left behind, the last piece of my game. My eyes and ears. Levi must have felt like a king when he first stepped into that CEO office. I can picture him now leaning back in that expensive leather chair, probably smirking, thinking he finally won, that he finally took what was rightfully his. Poor bastard had no idea. 2 days in reality, slapped him harder than a freight train. Dylan was useless, as dumb as a rock, as slow as molasses, as incompetent as I had carefully molded him to be. Levi must have tried to work with him at first, maybe sat him down, handed him reports, explained numbers, strategy, logistics, and Dylan, bless his little clueless heart, must have just nodded along, pretending to understand. But Levi caught on fast. He always was quick on his feet, so he did what any desperate man would do. He took control. He scrambled to form a new HR team, shuffled production workers into management roles, threw bodies at the problem, hoping something would stick. And honestly, I have to give it to him. He moved fast, he was good at it, but then reality set in. The company was nothing but an empty shell. No money, no liquidity, just debt and chaos. Then the banks called payments overdue, suppliers demanding their money accounts dry. He must have been sitting at his desk, running his hands through his hair, wondering how did he Not see this coming, well, that was the beauty of it. I had always kept production running no matter what, even if it meant borrowing from the bank to keep the machines humming, the products rolling out. It kept the illusion alive. Now there was nothing left to borrow. No bank would touch them with a 10F pole, and then came the final nail in the coffin. Dylan's credit card bill, $70 million, $60 million on a private jet that was now at the bottom of the sea, the rest his big lavish pointless birthday bash. And the best part, he was still spending. Lake Tiaco was calm that morning, the air crisp, the water reflecting the soft hues of dawn. I stood on the balcony of my villa, coffee in hand, watching the world wake up. It was a different life, a different world from where I had been behind me. Rosa stretched lazily on the bed, the silk sheets barely covering her flawless body. She was young, beautiful, full of life. Everything Amelia never was. She adored me not for my money, but because I was a man who had conquered life, a man who had walked through hell and come out on the other side untouched. I took another sip of my coffee and smiled to myself. Back home, Amelia was drowning. She had to sell the house, the same house where she had once entertained her rich friends, played cards, and lived in the illusion of security gone. Her seaside villa, her prize car collection. Each car hand-picked to match, her extravagant tastes sold off one by one. Gone Levi, the great mastermind. The man who thought he had beaten me had no choice but to sell the company, Hudson's Company. And Dylan, poor Dylan, the prince who never learned to fend for himself, the boy I had raised in comfort. In excess in ignorance, he couldn't live alone. Of course, not he was trained to depend on his father. Not me. Levi, Amelia. They tried to push him away, tried to make him stand on his own 2 feet, but it was too late. He was broken in all the right places. Now the three of them lived in a small apartment sharing the same space, like rats in a cage. Amelia, once the queen of high society, now reduced to cooking instant meals. Levi, once the great SED producer, now just another factory worker, and Dylan, diabetes. A lifetime of indulgence, of excess, of never being told no had finally caught up to him. The boy who was once handed everything, now had nothing, and me. I should feel guilty, shouldn't I? Perhaps I do, perhaps somewhere. Deep down I know I'll pay for what I did, that when I finally meet my end, God himself will weigh my sins against me, but if he sends me to hell, I sure will rule over it. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.